your book you published about, how kids learn in the digital era. What is your advice? It feels like to a certain extent, recognizing that kids are reading all the time and digesting information, but both for the parents and the kids, how is it different today than it used to be?
Yeah, Rebecca, thank you. It's a scary time, and I think it was a scary time even before the COVID pandemic. I think parents were quite worried about the amount of time that young people are spending staring into devices and accessing information. And a book that we wrote about 12 years ago called Born Digital was a look at the way in which young people for the first time are born into an era where they never knew an analog only world. They've always known this digital world, and since that time there's only been an increase in the amount of time that young people are using, staring into devices and interacting with one another through them. And of course in the pandemic, it's even the discussion about screen time you can't really have, right? Because kids are always looking through their screen. They have to, because there's no other interface to their not just to their schools and their activities, but to their friends, right, and to their families. So in some ways I think that the debate has had to shift away from screen time to the quality of what young people are doing on these screens, and how we model for them, and how we do restrict in some ways the amount of time where we can, and get them outside to play soccer and to walk around and do the things that are necessary. So I do think that we are in a scary moment on this front. But I also think as you dig into the data, it's actually the interaction that most kids have is actually not a bad one through these devices. And for most kids, the data that we've seen is that actually from a social and emotional perspective, it's a lifeline. It's actually a very positive thing, even in the pandemic, and in some ways, especially in the pandemic. So it is one of those things that cuts in multiple directions, and it's going to be specific to every family. But it's absolutely a moment of introspection for sure, and ensuring we can have some balance in kids' lives.
And you came out with another book just this fall during the pandemic on the subject. You want to show everyone
That's
because
true. Yes, it was holding up my computer before, but it's called The Connected Parent, and we did not anticipate a pandemic, but it came out. It came out this fall just as things were shutting down. And really, what we tried to do with that book is to look at all the data that are out there by researchers about the teenage brain and how kids are growing up and so forth, and then try to turn that into advice for parents based on the kinds of questions we've heard from parents, whether that's about privacy or about the fears around security and bullying and safety and so forth, as well as learning, and try to translate it into some very specific advice depending on the kids' ages. So that's the most recent book, but the pandemic has put even more pressure, of course, on that topic.